Okay. Hi, my name is Cassie. I'm a director of student life and part-time librarian teacher at my school in Burnaby, British Columbia.
I'm Kelsey Penny. I'm a program coordinator at a nonprofit called Children's Autism Services in Edmonton.
And my name is Anna Miller. I am a grade 2 team lead teacher at Rundle College in Calgary, Alberta.
So the three of us felt that the best way we could do this and discuss technology and our contexts and experiences was to have a very natural conversation. I feel like the three of us feel like we learn more when we work together and collaborate. And so we felt like this was probably the best way to go about it, especially using technology to drive our conversation. So I'll start. I guess I'll give my background in terms of how I use technology. I feel like being a younger teacher and growing up, relatively comfortable around technology, and it's been a huge part of my life. I feel like it plays the role of connecting me with people, and it plays the role of giving me information. And when I say give, it spits it out to me, right? Like, it's not filtered right away. I have to do the filtering. I have to make sure that what I'm reading is what I'm interested in. And so I feel like it spits it out and I ingest it and then filter. And then in terms of a teacher, I think I use it in the classroom mostly. I want to say that I use it to differentiate instruction, and that's its main purpose. But honestly, like from the get-go, I use it to engage my students, right? Like, you do use it as an entertainment tool first, and then kind of sometimes feel like you're tricking your students into learning a skill, right? Like, here's this razzle dazzle, here's this new application, this game that's like going to attract you and get you engaged. But by the way, we're actually learning. By the way, there is content or a skill behind it. And so I almost compare it to like a magic trick, like an illusion, right? Here's this beautiful thing that you're looking at, and here's the thing that I know I want you to see and I want you to fall for. So I think in a nutshell, that's kind of how I use it as a teacher. And then as a director of student life, I think I've really utilized social media to connect our community, which has been a really cool way for me to make sure that our students are connecting with parents and alumni and staff as well. So it's kind of it in a nutshell, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, like you said, you kind of trick your students into getting engaged or using it as like an anticipatory set almost. I feel like I do that with staff as well. Like if I go to a staff meeting where I'm going to be covering like a lot of information, or for you maybe some like detailed stuff that I have to go through and it's going to be a bit long, I'm like, okay, let's start with something fun. Let's start with something engaging, or teaching them something new that they can use in their classrooms.
Yeah.
I think for me, like, I use technology to build that connection and to build that opportunity to share with each other different ways that we can kind of impact and change our practice. And for me, I think like as a leader within my group of teachers and educators, I want to show them that I am using technology so that it encourages them to use it as well. And I think that that's like, it's such a neat way for students to be interacting, especially like I work with kids that are nonverbal. So a lot of them use technology as their way of communicating and interacting with their peers. So to show it at kind of the top level and have that trickle down of, I want to see you guys exposing your kids to this. And I work preschool and kindergarten age, so people always think like too much is like, don't put too much technology in because we need to have other opportunities, which I totally agree with. But I think that our kids are needing to learn how to use technology effectively. And I think that it can build that opportunity for communication through using technology. And I mean, in my day-to-day life, I'm on the computer all the time. I'm using different apps and programs to kind of build information and offer opportunities for other staff to give their input and to share information. And I think that it feels natural to me to be using technology within my practice. And I think that that's been something that I've noticed right away. It's just my use of technology throughout my different roles that I've had.
I think you mentioned talking about, setting that example as a leader. I think that's so important, because that goes for really every facet. If you look at all of our courses in this program through leadership, it's being that model or that compass. And do you feel like, I'll get into what I think in a sec, but do you think that you setting that example, even if it's something you're not necessarily super comfortable with and learning alongside, do you think that's just as important?
Yeah, for sure. I think that it kind of sets the precedent that we always want to be moving forward with our use of technology. And I think that if you're a leader who is not embracing that, your staff won't be motivated to do so, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I think of kind of building on what you guys are saying, I love the whole modeling piece. I think that's so important in my role as a teacher, as well as learning alongside my students, and mine are in grade 2 right now. I've taught all elementary, but I think that when I think of technology with them, I need to find a balance between too much and not enough, because that foundational stage of them learning and their development of their fine motor skills is so important. So we've had a lot of conversations recently about the pencil to paper work versus everything digitally. And we need to try to find that kind of balance, because our kids are not going to be able to do those critical writing skills that lead into everything else later on if they don't have that extra practice at this age. So that's just been that's kind of what drives my technology use in the classroom, is trying to find a way that enhances the learning rather than it being a supplement to that hands-on kind of constructivist approach where they're learning from each other and also by doing it to build their understanding. So for me, that's what drives how I use it in the classroom. And I use it every day, where we have our iPads 1-to-1 in my class or the whole school. And so it's expected. We have our, our smart boards and that kind of thing. But again, I try to find that balance.
And do you think since COVID, has there been any sort of change for you? Like, you want to have that practice with pencil and paper and having those opportunities. Have you found that more challenging as an educator since the pandemic has started?
Absolutely. And I think I want to add in also the balance, or my role as a parent, because I see how much that screen time has affected my own children. And we've actually pulled them out of part of the program because it's too much screen time. So as a teacher, we've explained to parents that it is important for them to have that pencil to paper. And so we actually expect our parents to print certain things, and then they take pictures and upload them to us. And that balance is so important, because if you look at pediatric recommendations from like the Canadian Pediatric Board, I think it's for this age, it's less than 2 hours a day, and they're getting way more than that right now. So that's a concern.
I think for me, especially like relative to the whole COVID thing, what I'm starting to notice is this division that technology and the use of it in the classroom and how comfortable you are with using it in the classroom has kind of weirdly been put on, the forefront of our attitudes, right? And of us as a staff, like how comfortable we are with our technology is basically putting us on this weird hierarchy, right? Like the tech can-dos that will help, and then the tech can'ts, right? And there's this technology elite that has become the forefront of ask them for the professional development and building of capacity about your technology. And then there's this bottom that don't even know what they don't know, right? That don't even understand, not through their fault of their own. They just haven't been given opportunities to develop that, but are too shy or too scared or too anxious about, all of our surroundings and their students and how their students are better at using technology than them, that they're not comfortable with even asking for help. And that to me has really been what's taken main stage with technology and COVID and at our school in particular is where are we in this weird hierarchy? How do we make sure that people are equal, right?
And sometimes separating, or it's separating the generational gap more.
Yeah,
so
way more.
Expanding.
Yeah.
Well, when we think about the way that, like, the role that technology plays in our society, like, I think with our own roles, we recognize that we are using it in our practice, but like those are kind of more of those societal challenges with technology. And I mean, you kind of touched on this too, the idea of screen time. And for the kids that I work with, like the engagement they get from a screen is more exciting neurologically than and it's this huge gap to try and jump when they're on their iPad for a long time. Getting them to switch to a person and be just as excited and be just as motivated is super challenging.
Yeah.
So it's like we have to kind of have that balance for our young kids. Like developmentally, our little ones aren't supposed to be on the screen, like you said, more than 2 hours. And how do we balance their learning right now? And just in general, because I think it also becomes a crutch that we use a lot. Like if we're trying to get an assignment done, it's like, here's the iPad. Or like if you're trying to get dinner cooked, like grab the iPad for a little while and watch a TV show. And I think that like in society, technology, it gives us so much access, it gives us so much connection, but there's also that component of kind of that breakdown of connection to like, we're not using it, or we're using it so much that we're actually not connecting with each other in person as much. I think that's one of the things that I find really interesting about the role that it plays.
And then, you know, jumping off from that is the transition back to connection in real life, right? We're using these devices right now to connect, and it's so important for mental health, for our learning, for everything. And I mean, even exercise right now, I'm doing yoga classes on a device, you know, but when we go back to know what's normal, how are we going to help our students and our kids shift back to less technology? Because it does have that kind of addictive part of it, where you're constantly getting all of this information. I can't remember the word right now, that instant gratification. You know, how are we going to shift our kids back in a healthy way, emotionally, mentally? It's a concern.
And for me, I'm not even just thinking about kids, I'm thinking about me, right? I'm thinking about myself, right? I told you guys when we met earlier about my mentor teacher and how she really pushed me not to use technology during my practicum, and said, she gave me a week and said, don't use PowerPoint, don't use your laptop. Let's just get back to the nitty gritty of what education should be, and it should be about connection. And right now, at that point in my career, she said, I was using technology as a crutch, and I was using it as a way to make my teaching, quote, shine, when really at the core of what I was doing was actually getting kids away from one another and away from learning from one another. Let's bring it back to that. Let's connect face to face, because you're using it when you shouldn't be. Like, you're not substituting anything, right?
Yeah.
When we're online learning and using Zoom, we're substituting face-to-face integration and face-to-face interactions. So in a classroom, why are you using technology? She called me out, to have the kids connect and do a podcast or do whatever together, when they could just be talking face to face. And for me, that was super eye-opening, because I have to constantly check in my brain, am I using it because I'm substituting something that we can't do right now, right? And that for me is always a check in my mind when I plan lessons. Like, is there something I can't do? Like, for instance, even as a volleyball or basketball coach, my players cannot face-to-face talk to a coach in Ontario or talk to a coach in Nova Scotia to get recruited. So they'll reach out and use Twitter, they'll reach out and use emails and form a YouTube channel, because that coach can't come and watch their highlights. So that substitute, I feel, is appropriate. But the coach in Capilano or the coach here that's local, they should be reaching out. They should be going and meeting with them. They should be inviting them to watch their games live. And that's where I feel like technology sometimes is used ineffectively, right? It's used as a substitute when you don't need it to be a substitute.
And that leads into, you know, that article that we read about Khan and the 4 different categories that he talks about. And the category C with effective teaching in some of those programs is that, are we actually using technology to more effectively teach, or to enhance and really build conceptual understanding? Or is it, just like you said, that flash factor? So
I don't know, I feel like it is. Early in my career, I felt like it was.
And I think that that's normal, and that's what they're talking about, is like these pre-service teachers in these programs, the technology course is usually one course. It's on its own and it's compartmentalized. It's not necessarily threaded through everything else, or at least that's what it was for me. It's, here are some cool tools to use and that flash factor, and then here is the content and curriculum.
Well, so that was like the Terry article too. That one was speaking more about kind of teachers' knowledge and attitudes and skills towards technology really impact their use of it in the classroom, but also that the culture of the school and the way the leaders act around technology is also like such an impact to that relationship of using technology in the classroom. And I think, Cassie, you hit on this when you talked about kind of meaningful integration of technology.
For sure.
Like when I go into consult with a teacher, if I just tell them use more technology throughout your day, that doesn't give them like a meaningful bite to try and work through. But if I say, hey, there's this one app that I think might work at this time of your day. Why don't you try using it 3 times this week, and I'll come back next week and check in. It's so much more meaningful to like give them a purpose of, this app might enhance this moment, or this app might give you that feedback you're looking for, but it's not just using it for the sake of using it, right?
Okay.
So do you think that the ongoing support, if you think of teachers and your positions in, you know, as leaders and future, you know, leaders of institutions and schools, do you think that somebody like a technology integrator is critical to the implementation of some of the new technologies, because they're constantly changing?
Yeah, I mean, at our school, so we're a full G Suite school. Every kid has my STMC email, which gives them access to docs and sheets and things like that, forms, calendar, whatever. With that, so does every teacher. How are we supposed to teach our students how to use calendar for executive functioning skills? How are we supposed to teach our students how to type without knowing those skills ourselves, right? Without understanding those skills for our own practice. And so I feel like we do have a technology integrator teacher. He's director of, you know, tech integration, but it's only 2 blocks. So he's supposed to be basically Google on call, right, for 2 blocks, and he's teaching for the rest of it. And I feel like it's so important, especially nowadays, to integrate it effectively and not just integrate it, period. Right? Yeah. Why are you doing it? What's the intention? What's the purpose? Let's get down to that. And if you need technology, then for sure, he'll help you do that. But he constantly checks us, which is, I find, the best part of his, what he brings to the table for our school.
We have a technology integrator as well, but that's her full-time job. So she's K to 6.
So jealous.
And it's awesome. She is so busy. Right. And she's built a whole robotics progression for the school from K to 6. And then she also does in like support in the classroom. So if we're in grade 2, we introduce them to Google Docs. They don't do much in grade 1 with G Suite, but we do a lot more in grade 2. And so she comes in and she'll do a full lesson with all the different classes individually, introducing them how to create a doc or how to edit and that kind of thing, because it's really very basic.
Well, that's such an important skill set for kids to have exposure to, right? Like we talk about that concept of tech literacy, and like our kids need to be learning how to access things on the internet safely, and how to take information and use what you need and not plagiarize. And I mean, the concept of their careers in 20 years, they're going to need to use technology most likely, right? So like, I think a teacher that's resistant to using technology isn't doing their students a service, because they need to have that opportunity to try it and to make mistakes and to learn through, and also learn that idea of like, when should I use technology and when can I just connect in person? I think that's an important thing to continue to focus on in our classrooms.
She's also built a big digital citizenship progression and curriculum, because I think that now that COVID's happened, it is becoming so much more important for us to help teach, because right now a lot of parents at home don't have the time to teach that digital citizenship piece and safety. And so that's been a huge part of us transitioning online.
Well, I think that's like the last question in the kind of assignment details that we had was around how your experiences, your beliefs and attitudes and understanding of technology changes over time. I think when I looked at that question, this COVID pandemic has forced me to use technology in a different way, even just working from home. Like I'm doing a lot of program planning and scheduling for next year. And usually I get like a big whiteboard out with a bunch of Post-it notes, a bunch of like mapping, and like for me, pen to paper work during this time of year is huge. And I've been kind of forced to keep that digital so that everyone has access, because usually people are coming into meetings with me and looking at that big map and going, okay, what are we going to do here? But learning how to use technology in a different way that I thought would take away from the process. But once I used it and I was forced to use it, I've noticed that I'm actually more effective and more efficient, and I can share information more easily. And I think that for me, like my experiences in using technology just in the past few weeks have changed how I will work in the future, right? It will change how I share information with staff or give them access to things. And I think that it also kind of impacts the way that I see technology in my work.
I think for me, COVID has definitely given me a huge, you know, notice of like, you need to be more willing to help people, and you need to be able to look at people that aren't comfortable or aren't using it and not say, look at that person who, you know, doesn't want to do it. Why? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Get with it. And instead of saying that, try to understand why, because a lot of it is a fear of change. And that's what's coming out from our specific camp is like, I just don't feel comfortable, therefore I won't, because I don't need to. And I think for me as a teacher and as a leader, yes, okay, model, but also reach out and make the connection and make it so that they trust you and feel like they can be anxious, so they can feel that dysregulation and be okay with it. And then let's work together, because I feel like that's eventually what's going to bring them forward. Not, hey, you need to use G Suite now. And I feel like that message is being sent a lot.
Yeah, well, that brings up that whole empathy piece that I think is so important when you're looking at, you know, that kind of emotional intelligence as a leader.
Yeah.
Right? Is, can you understand from their perspective something that is super uncomfortable? And I think that all three of us were in a position where we are super comfortable with technology, and I'm like, hey, throw another app at me, I don't really care, I'll try it out.
Yeah.
That's a totally different lens than somebody who is uncomfortable. And so as a leader, you know, when you think back to one of our first courses about systems change, the only way for us to actually help everybody in a leadership role is to understand all of those different perspectives and how we can work together to make change and to help each other along the way. So
that was a good conclusion.
That was great. Okay.
Wrapping it up.
All right. So we say goodbye?
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, you guys.